Elixir conference. Thank you. My name is Gideon. I work at Cars Commerce, and I'm here to talk about molecular biology, which is probably not the science lesson you thought you were getting today. A little about me. I have a background in biology. I did some research, and now life has wound me up at Cars Commerce doing Elixir, which is awesome. So what is molecular biology? Molecular biology is the study of the structure and function of proteins and macromolecules in the cell. So we all heard, in high school, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Molecular biology answers, how does that really work? And what is the powerhouse in this context anyway? I'm not going to answer that for you today. So the cell has what I like to think of as the oldest API, billions of years old. So an API being any interface that an external actor uses to transfer requests and instructions. So the cell is surrounded by the phospholipid bilayer, which is covered in a vast array of receptors and channels that receive instructions from the outside, like glucose is present in the area, so the insulin-producing cells release insulin, transmitting instructions and sometimes collecting resources from outside. At this level, structure is function. DNA encodes a sequence of amino acids which are folded into a protein, which does work. And the physical configuration of those amino acids determines the electrochemical properties of the protein. So very literally, the structure of a protein is its function. A protein is a function. And so too is structure, function, and functional programming. We're very used to using the shape of data to determine what we're going to do with it or what it's going to do, such as pattern matching, change sets, case clauses. There's a beam running in the cell, every cell. Cytosol is chock full of a host of workers who are waiting huge payloads of instructions, which they then process to carry out work. Workers are then marked as idle when they're not doing anything or they run out of instructions and recycled. So there we have message queues and garbage collection in every cell, in every organism. And the comparisons continue. Cells can package themselves up at their end of the life into handy chunks of resources, which we would consider failing gracefully, or they die and explode, which is what happens when my programs have a seg fault. DNA can be self-regulating. It can sometimes tell if it's been copied badly. It can upregulate and downregulate the expression of genes, which that's metaprogramming. Steroids, like my favorite one, caffeine, demonstrate privilege escalation. They bypass all other safeguards and enter cells directly to change the way that they're behaving. In caffeine's case, go fast, star. And some metabolic pathways will inhibit their own beginnings once they've completed, such as a gen server telling itself to stop. So why is it like this? Well, perhaps in nature we see patterns repeat themselves at small and large scales. So have we designed software to work this way because this is how we work? Or are we answering the same math problems? Are these math problems we've answered correctly, the same way the cell has? My take is that these are systems of information that follow some of the same constraints and are subject to the same problems. And as cells have been experimenting wildly without direction for billions of years, we've had a few, just decades really, to design with intention. And so we have some of the same answers. What do you think? Thank you for coming to my talk. Please feel free to stay in touch.
Hello, everyone. Did not expect to feel like I just got out of biology class, but that last one was pretty cool. So my presentation here is about deploying to Google Cloud without using Kubernetes. Why might you want to do that? Well, anybody that's used Kubernetes probably knows that there is some complexity involved in setting up a Kubernetes cluster. You also have, some costs associated with the servers that are basically just managing the Kubernetes pods. So I did a little experiment just to see, is there a way to do OTP, clustered distributed OTP in the cloud without necessarily bringing in something like Kubernetes? So there's 4 steps: launch a virtual machine, apt install, clone the project, run mixphx server, you're good to go. Just kidding, we can do better than that. We can take advantage of some more managed services here. So the question is, what do you need in order to have a dependable deployment system set up for a production environment? Well, first thing you need a place to store your data. This is probably going to look exactly the same as if you were on Kubernetes. You want some sort of a managed SQL instance, backups, replication, point-in-time recovery. You get all that with Cloud SQL. Next, you need a place to store your secrets. Turns out Google Cloud has an offering called Secret Manager, where you can put your passwords, private keys, API keys, and all of that. There is a caveat, though. If you're using bare VMs, which we'll talk about in just a second, you do need a way to retrieve the secrets from Secret Manager and plop them into your Phoenix config, your Elixir config. So luckily, there is something called a config provider, which allows you to pull values from somewhere other than those files that live in the config folder. So using a custom config provider, you can make an API call to Secret Manager and pull those variables in and put them in the config as if they were in the environment variables. Next, you need a place to run your code. We all love Docker, so let's use that. And Google Cloud has a specific type of a VM image called Container Optimized OS, which is basically just give it an image, it'll run it for you, and it boots it up, loads it, and does all of that automatically for you. We've all probably run the mix phx gen release -- docker. That gives you your Docker file, and you're good to go. Next, we need to scale the code. So just because we're not in Kubernetes doesn't mean we don't want auto scaling. And so Google Cloud has an offering called Managed Instance Groups, which will take a virtual machine template and auto scale it up and down. And you can use different inputs as the signal to go up or go down. The most basic one being your CPU usage. You can even look at requests. Maybe you're not doing a Phoenix web app. Maybe you're doing a consumer type of app. And so you can actually use pub sub queue signals. And you can even use preemptible VMs. Cheaper. It does mean they can pull the power on them at any time, but sometimes that makes sense. Next, you need a place to serve the static assets. So your JavaScript files, CSS files, images. We'll just throw those in a bucket, put a CDN in front of them, and you're good to go on that. And then last, you need a way to automate all this. So Cloud Build comes in. It's your typical build platform. You have steps. Each step can load a Docker image, run some sort of a command, and produce an output. So what does that look like? I have a few snippets here. One of the things we'll do is we'll create an instance template. So this is what describes the container that is going to run. So you give it the image, the environment variables, a few Google Cloud specific arguments, and you're good to go. Next, once you have the new template, now it's time to push that out to the environment. So this tells the managed instance group that you want to take down the VMs that were running the old image and start adding in VMs with the new image. And you can do this. There's a lot of different strategies available, from doing it more gradually to more quickly. There's a lot of options that you can choose there. Then we got to run our ecto migrations, of course. So since we're in a cloud build file, we can just load up the right Docker image that'll allow us to run the migrate shell script that comes when you run mix phx gen release, and then you're live. So once all the cloud build completes, ecto migrations have run. You now have your VMs running the new image, sitting behind the load balancer, ready to scale as new requests come in. Now, what about the OTP cluster? Didn't touch on that, but we didn't forget about it. So there is a template file in the release overlays where you can set the variables needed to tell OTP that you want to run in a cluster. And so taking advantage of the Google Cloud Metadata API, which is basically a private API available to any VM running in the Google Cloud network, you can just make a request there, pull the IP address of the private IP address of that virtual machine, and then use that to build the node name that you're going to use in the cluster. And then the last piece to it is using libcluster. I had built a strategy for it that's specific for this scenario. So what it does is it looks at the managed instance group. It assumes that you want to cluster together all the virtual machines in that instance group. So you give it the group name, and it basically works almost exactly like any of the other strategies that you can find for libcluster. And that's it.
So we're going to talk about protecting our Phoenix apps against mass assignment vulnerabilities. What is it? This is a big blob of text, but basically what it is when a malicious actor is able to force new fields into your payloads that you receive on requests or events, and that allows them to change your database underneath you. That's what it is. Oh, and the QR code. I can't see the screens, but the QR code. What that will do is, if you're interested in this type of stuff, send you all over to the OWASP cheat sheet on this. So the next part is a demo. So we have this beautiful dashboard here, and then this is us, the hacker user, and then we have the admin user. The admin user can go to a special admin page, and it's only for admins. And then for the hacker user, they are not an admin, so they are not allowed to go to the admin page. But we do also have the setting page with a form on it, and this is typically where things go wrong. What we can do, because we're hackers, we're going to go in. We go to the form here. We're going to edit as HTML. It's probably really, is it too tiny? We can grab this little input here. And we just plop it in, probably wherever. And now we have an input box that allows us to set our role. So we can just say, hey, guess what? We are now an admin. Okay. And we can go admin, and now we're in. And so the reason to like prevent this from your Phoenix apps, the big gotcha that I have seen is in your change set functions. We are just using one change set for creating and updating, and we allow the role to be cast. So there's a lot of different ways you can solve for this. One, just use different change sets for different actions. Two, just good code review and testing. But yeah, so that's mass assign. That's how it can happen easily in a Phoenix application is your change sets. That's all I have.
My name's Tyler. I like Elixir, don't you? One thing I like about it is that the community is so friendly and welcoming, and it's very important for all of us to help foster that. And part of fostering that means there are some words that we don't say. If you've read the code of conduct for the conference, you know you can't say a certain word that starts with F or S. Today I want to talk about the M word. And sorry. Oh, God. Oh, God. Okay, all right. Forget about the slides. All right, let's just look at some code. So I've got this, I insert a blog post, and then I need to send an analytics event. So I've got a case statement. If it's inserted successfully, we do the thing. What I don't like about this is there's a lot of like visual noise here for something that it's like kind of a tiny little side effect that we don't like. It's not the point of this function, right? The point of the function is just these 3 lines. We can improve this a little bit by piping into case. No? Okay, all right. Thank you. There's, of course, tap, kernel.tap, and we can, because a function can have, multiple pattern matches in there, we can pull out the post and track that. Okay, it's an improvement, but can we do better? That's where this tiny little helper called result.tap OK. So what this does is given an OK and a value, it'll run your little function, and it'll return the thing that you piped into it. If it gets an error, it just returns the error. Kind of nice, cleans this up, and we can clean it up even more. This is about the amount of visual weight that I want to give to the analytics event in my post insertion. We can go further. So in this one, we are inserting a bunch of posts, and we want to do it in a transaction so that if any of them fail, we abort the whole thing. And so we do this insertion, and we're going to find, is there any error? Do any of the results match the error type? And if so, we'll return it, and the transaction will be aborted. And if not, we're going to map over all of the results so that we're just returning OK and a list of all the posts. Boy, that's a lot of syntax for something that's relatively simple conceptually, right? That's where this helper results.enum.mapWhileOK comes in. What this is going to do under the hood, it's a reduce while. I don't know if you've used reduce while. It's powerful, but also syntax heavy, so I hide it in a little helper function so nobody knows. What it does is it'll keep inserting posts, and if it ever hits an error, returns the error immediately. Otherwise, returns you a list of all of the results from your OK tuple. Super clean. You can just write these helpers. Like, nobody can stop you. It's great. All right, this one, we're going to fetch products from Stripe, and then we're going to convert the Stripe product object to a list of internal IDs. Maybe it's like plan levels. There's free, and there's starter and professional and enterprise, whatever. So first we got a match on the OK, like is Stripe down? Did that fail? Then we got a match, okay, if we don't recognize this product, we want to drop it, so we're going to return nil, and then we're going to reject the nil, and it's all so much. So here, we're just going to fetch the products. We're going to do map OK. Map OK says, if this is an OK result, we're going to run your function over it, and then we're going to return you another OK tuple. You can return an unwrapped value. You can return an OK or error tuple. Map OK will pass it along. So we're going to grab the products out, and we're going to map over the internal product ID. And then we've got another helper here in the enum helpers that says reject error. So anytime we have an error in our list of things that get piped into it, it's just going to drop it. So unrecognized products get dropped. And this is super nice and clean, and I like it a lot. I got one more example. We've got, we want to get all of the customers who have bought a pencil holder. So Stripe, we fetch the product. Again, Stripe might be down. We're going to query the customers owning that product, and only if both of those succeed do we return the customers. Otherwise, we're going to return the empty list. In this case, maybe we decided we don't want the whole page to error out or whatever. Just return the empty list. It's fine. Again, with is really powerful. I like with a lot. I used a lot. But in this case, we can do better. So we can say fetch the product. And on OK, we're going to map for the customers owning that. And then we've got this result.unwrap. What unwrap does is when you get an OK result, it's just going to return the raw value. It's going to drop the OK and the tuple bit. And when it gets an error, it's going to return the default. So if we had an error anywhere in this pipeline, in the fetching of the product or getting customers that own it, we're just going to return the empty list. That's all I got. Go forth and write more of these helpers. If you want this tiny little result module, tylerayoung.com. There's a link there.
Fantastic.
Okay, let's get started. This is introducing Tower. So, introduction. I'm Marcelo, Marpo16, social networks. Work at Mimicwade, and I'm from Uruguay. So, what is Tower? Tower is the ultimate error tracker for Elixir application you will need. It happens that while we work on internal projects, there are some needs, and we try to do open source solutions to fix them. One of those was we will build a new internal tool and want to do error tracking. So how do you do that right now? So the current situation right now, it's you need to add error tracking to your Elixir app. You decide what service you will use to send your errors. You look for a good library for that service. You configure it, deploy it, and start receiving those errors. So that looks, in those libraries, you have to. They basically do three things. They capture errors, and that depends. Sometimes they use logger backend. Sometimes they do logger handler because you need to support previous OTP or not. Error logger handler, telemetry event. After that, they need to transform those events into some format for the remote services. That's a JSON for HTTP API requests, or maybe it's a subject and email for others. and then they make a remote call. So it actually looks like something like this. Our solution is to build a new X package that is called Tower that instead takes care and does an abstraction and basically split that into two different things. So instead, take care of capturing errors. Number one, give them a well-defined shape, a Tower event struct, and pass along this event to a pre-configured but separate reporter, which takes care of the error reporting. That is step 2 and step 3, depending on the service that you want to report. So this brings us a few benefits. One of it is if there is a change in Elixir or in the Beam, and you only need to change Tower, you don't need to change any of the reporters, because that's the only place you need to change if you no longer depend on plugs or Logger backend and you want to use Logger handle, because that's the new way of doing that. You can do that in one place. The other thing is the ease of switching service. So you can switch from one error tracking service provider to another without making any change to application. And this is, you switch the error packet, but Tower still is part of your application. And all of your configuration specific to Tower and error capturing tactics is still valid and change. So this is kind of, probably you won't need it, but if you need to change from, I don't know, using rollbar to Sentry, you are one configuration, you're change reporters, and that's it. The other benefit is capturing once, report many. Maybe you want to report some errors to Slack, some other errors to email, some other errors to Sentry. You can do this like out of the box just by defining multiple reporters. The current reporters that we have is Tower Slack, Tower Email, Tower Rollbar. We're working on Tower Sentry and Tower Web, and you can build your own reporter too, because it's just a protocol that you define the actions you want to do, where you want to hit your errors, and that will be it. So yeah, go check it out. It's all live, all open source. Those are the links. We also have another project, the open source is called Blend. Go check it out, and if you have any questions of us, what we do at Mimikwood or whatever, just hit me out in the hallway. Thanks.
Nice. You got a minute and a half. What other towers?
Questions?
Yeah. What other tower things are you thinking about doing?
We are probably thinking about doing Tower Web, because once you do Tower Web and you have everything on your small application, it's going to be easier for you to open like a Sentry panel web page, and you can click on your user to have the exception or the context, and you can get all in the same page. And all of this is sort of like in the Owen way, that you include your packages and you can handle all within your. It's like open source, all free. You don't need to pay for anything. It's just, if you're on a paid, like on a small project or something small, you can use this out of the box and it should fulfill your needs.
Yeah. All right, Michael St. Clair. Thank you, Marcelo. That was awesome. Michael St. Clair.
Okay, so today I just wanted to share a library that I recently wrote. I am a huge fan of mocking to be able to get high unit test coverage. And so a pattern that I've seen pretty commonly through a couple different code bases when you're trying to implement mocking is that you'll use some kind of environment configuration to say what version of a behavior you want to use. The problem with this is then when you go to try to use it, you get no support from the language server to know what autocomplete is or how to like go to where that's happening. And so what did I do? I broke the first rule of macros. So I wrote Injexor, and what that does is it will go and find your behavior in your file, and any callbacks, it will then swap them out to a configuration value that's read at runtime, so you can live swap in behaviors. And now it will let you click through, and it gives you all your definitions on your behavior, and also lets you mock. However, I will say I just recently found you can just set a module attribute, so it makes my macro useless a little bit. But if you do it this way, if you set a module attribute and use compile env, it will then also work with the language server. It's just the function definition that does not. So if you wanted runtime evaluation, my macro is one way to make that work.
So I'm Chris. I work for a startup called Vetspire, and we build a lot of cursed libraries. This one's not cursed, but if I do have time, I'll talk about the cursed ones. So Endo. Endo is a tool to kind of allow you to directly query your database itself, i.e. like the actual tables in your database, indexes, stuff like that. The reality of running a business sometimes is that your database is coupled to end users. In our case, we have various data teams, Snowflake integrations, and stuff like that. So we have like higher order constraints on our database that we'd like to enforce. Simple things like, for example, we want to enforce that timestamps exist on every non-join table. We want to enforce that certain things are indexed and stuff like that. So we built this tool, which, sorry. Yeah, so we built this tool, which should let us do that pretty easily. It works with Postgres right now, but we're working on a SQLite adapter as well. But long story short, if I just go, if you do that, it gives you every table in your database. It has a Fluent API as well, so you can do stuff like with column org. Thank you. Thank you. With column org ID, and now it gives you everything that contains an org ID without column, I don't know, inserted at, nothing. So that's good. So we actually leveraged this to, close that. We actually leveraged this to create this like custom mixed task vetSpy validate repo. So what it does is it ensures org IDs are indexed everywhere, that we've got timestamps. If you guys use logical replication for Postgres, sometimes you'll run into bugs where your replica identities aren't set for your join tables. So we make sure that's set as well. And like, yeah, all of the code is simply just using Endo. Sometimes you have business features as well that you need to support. So for example, we have this function which a doctor might want to merge records. Like you might have duplicate patients between multiple clinics and you want to merge them in. You could do it the naive way and just write like, hey, repo update all X to Y. But as you add new features, as you change columns and everything, you're going to go out of sync, and then you're constantly going to have to be maintaining your merge function. But with Endo, you can just reflect on the database itself. So here you can see Endo list tables from our repo where we have a foreign key constraint to clients or to patients or whatever else. We can then traverse all of the indexes and make sure that they have primary keys, do all of the lookups and everything, and then just mass do update alls without ever needing to touch this code. So as our data model evolves, the merge just continues to work, and that's pretty much guaranteed. So yeah, Endo. Endo's pretty cool. If we have more time, yeah. So we also have this thing called Ecto middleware. So this is really cool. So we have a macro called Ecto middleware which you use in your repo module. That just allows you to define this callback very similar to an Absinthe middleware, where you can then start having custom before and after behaviors run on any repo callback that you normally run. We use this really coolly to automatically scope queries to a specific org. So if a table has an org ID, and we have your org ID in the process dictionary, we can automatically make sure that your queries are scoped to what you're allowed to see. We ran into some really gnarly bugs with data loader, like completely ignoring all of our context functions and just doing like raw repo ors to our base tables and just like leaking org data. That's really bad. Maybe you shouldn't have said that. Yeah. So yeah, we have a higher order library called Ecto hooks, which is built on top of that. So we can do stuff like after delete on a schema, you want to apply coupons on an invoice, right? Or after a line item is updated or created, just apply coupons. So again, it's basically your database triggers, but all in Elixir. So you don't have any weird spooky action at a distance. And then this is one that we built that we don't use. But we've got this glass thing, which, similar to the previous guy, we're dynamically recompiling modules on the fly depending on your environment. So we use an umbrella app at vetSpy. So we have multiple different deployments, right? So we might have like a worker deployment. We might have like an admin deployment. And like when you're developing locally, it's really easy to just make a function call from one to the other and introduce a circular dependency. We have a one-stop fix for that, where when we do a mixed release, we'll actually swap any modules that you've defined a glass for to do a HTTP RPC, just completely transparently for you. So locally in your IDE, you get all of your type hints and all of your documentation and everything. But boom, you do a mixed release, and then suddenly we swap those modules and you're RPC'd. Bad idea, don't do it. But yeah, thank you.
I did not rehearse this, so we're going to see how it goes. Today we're going to say bye-bye to passwords, maybe. That's me. I write Elixir at SmartLogic, co-host of the Elixir Wizards podcast, one of the premier Elixir podcasts. Famously, Cat Dad, and if you haven't been following me already on X, I've been posting a bunch of fun photos from the conference, so check those out. You might be in one. 2 years ago, I did a talk at ElixirConf. I think this was my first ElixirConf talk about integrating WebAuthn with LiveView. And in the 2 years since, I've made some pretty big upgrades. There's much more to do, but today I'm going to show you what you can do with this package called WebAuthn Components. So I did a dry run of this earlier, and everything worked. We're going to watch my ego go up in flames. Hopefully the Wi-Fi is working today. Yep. So, and I'll explain why you would do this, maybe if I have enough time at the end, depending on how quickly things compile.
Got another one of those jokes?
Monad, nope. All right, let's see. So I've got my brand new Phoenix project here. I'm going to open, I'm going to open MixEXS. I'm going to run down to the dependency store, and I'm going to go buy some WebAuthn components. Look at me typing, wow. It never works like that, right? Yeah, catch that. Okay, so now I can run mix setup just to make sure I get my depths and also run the migrations. Then the thing I'm really proud of is what I'm about to do right now. Can everyone read what's on the screen? All right, watch this. We're about to get whack.
What?
Oh,
womp, womp,
gonna
womp.
need to read the instructions that I did earlier. See, deps.get. Whack.in.
Intel. There you go. Intesal.
Come on. It's not me. It's the computer.
It's.
All right. So what's happening here is if you've ever run mix phoenix.gen.auth, this is a similar kind of thing. It's generating a bunch of code for you, running some or adding some migrations, which you could modify before you actually run the migrations if you decide to do things differently. But you're getting a bunch of live views and some controller code or some context code generated for you, and some links to documentation here using Sorcerer and some other tools. And if I run mixecto.migrate, mixecto.reset. All right, then I can do IEX server, and then I can finally demonstrate how this actually works. So let's go to localhost. All right, so another thing it does is it gives you a nav bar where you can get these sign up and sign in links just given to you for free. You could make changes here. This is all code gen, so it's Tailwind. You do whatever you want once it's been generated. I'm going to go ahead and sign up for a new account. And whenever I do this, you're going to notice that there's no password field here because we're not doing that anymore, right? So I'm going to unlock one password, my password manager of choice. And it's going to ask if I want to expose any of my personal information. I'm going to say no. I'm going to create a new item, hit save. And yeah, we've got a z-index issue to deal with, but now I've registered a new account. I've got a token in the database as a session token, and I'm authenticated to this brand new application with 0 features. I'm going to go ahead and sign out, and whenever I come back to sign in, I can sign back in as myself, and that's how it works. So that's the user experience for WebAuthn components. The reasons you would want to do this is because passwords are bad. They get breached. Even organizations who are in charge of security sometimes get breached. That's not fun. If you want to find out if you've been breached, if your passwords are breached, this is where you'd want to go. Short answer is probably yes. And there are ways to mitigate this, mitigate password breaches. Those include SMS codes, email codes, one-time password codes. Long story short, none of those are entirely secure. Passwords seem to be entirely secure, but as we all know, there's no such thing as 100% secure. So this slide, I'll let this slide explain what passkeys are, or like why passwords are a problem. This slide kind of illustrates the flow of passkeys in general. This is the increasing prevalence of passkeys in our vocabulary on the internet. And then I'll show you a couple things here. If you are a Phoenix LiveView developer, this is a package written specifically for Phoenix LiveView apps because it does depend on Phoenix hooks. It's got live components. You can view the source code here in GitHub. You can download this. I published an update earlier, so this is the latest version, 0.8. You'll notice it's not version 1.0. I want to see more people trying this out, opening issues on the repo, having discussions in the forum as well, so we can make sure it's really strong. I definitely have some more work to do on improving some areas of the security. But also I want to point to the documentation here. If you want to understand how this flow works and how each of the components work in the library, take a quick stroll through the hex docs for WebAuthn components. This attempts to illustrate each step along the process for getting registered, getting authenticated, and how we manage tokens on the database for you. That is it.
Nice.
So I have no slides. I'm sorry / you're welcome. This is me attempting to do like a 5-minute version of a blog post, and I just start with showing the blog post. So yeah, Elixir and WordPress are friends. So yeah, Jose's talk was about like maybe some awesome projects that should exist. This is more about like maybe a terrible project that actually does exist, but I'll let you be the judge. So I am the author of a project called LiveState, and LiveState is a way to take a application and package it up into a custom HTML element. And WordPress, so I am not a real WordPress developer by any stretch. This started as an experiment. But WordPress added a thing recently called a block system, which makes it really easy to add a custom HTML element to a web page. So what I realized is I could take a LiveState application packaged as a custom element and turn it into a WordPress block. And I was surprised that it actually worked, and I was also surprised that I didn't have to write any PHP code, which is not my favorite thing at all. I did have to write a fair bit of JavaScript, so bear with me. So what I'm going to show you is basically the hello world of what we do in LiveView, a chat room. And so this is, I'll make this bigger. Let me bump the font a little. How is that? Is that too much? Oh, well. So this is the channel itself. It kind of looks a little bit like a live view by design. You have a couple of hooks that you implement. You declare the initial state, which is the init callback, where you just set it up with like an empty list of messages. And then there's only one event that I actually handle, which is send message. And in send message, I'm pub subbing onto a channel so that like everybody's synced up. And then I actually update the state when I get a message on that same pub sub channel. So handle event gets the message, publishes it over the channel, and then handle messages where it actually updates the state and pushes it down to the client. So the chat room is a custom HTML element, and the way that these look is in your custom element code, you're basically calling this connect element function, which is like hooking up your custom element to the live state backend, and you're saying, hey, here's the properties that I want you to manage, and here's the events to send up. And then the rest of the code is really just like rendering state, and for this form, it's just gonna like dispatch a custom event that then gets sent up over the channel. So that's the custom element front end and back end. and then turning it into a WordPress plugin was actually shockingly easy, believe it or not. They have a pretty decent like NPX thing that like spins up your WordPress project for you, and then you have to implement just a couple of things. This is the callback that says, hey, when I drop a block on a WordPress page, what actually gets put into the page markup? And in my case, I'm just like using the chat room element, and I'm specifying some attributes which are like managed by the WordPress admin UI, which I'll show you in a second. So the only attributes I need are the URL to connect to and the name of the chat room. And then the final kind of piece of the puzzle really is when you're in edit mode for adding blocks, as a user, you want to be able to like type those values in. And so here is where I probably have the most JavaScript. I'm using like some of their built-in React components to say, give me an editor for a URL attribute and a room attribute. And that's kind of all the pieces. And so let's actually see it in use. We'll go, I guess, expand this guy. Oops. Nope. So, yeah, if I go make a new WordPress page in the WordPress admin, I don't want a pattern. Get out of the way, please. ElixirConf. And then it will give me like the list of blocks, and I can choose my chat room block. I skipped the part where I like ran the script that packages up my project into the block zip file and then uploaded that to WordPress. I skipped that part. It's already here. But I can just drop it on the page. It renders my UI. I can say, here's my back end. In this case, I'll use the ElixirConf room. And then if I save a draft, I can go view the preview, and poof, my little guy's on the page. I can't type, so I'm not going to try. And boom. I can see that I can like actually, it's actually connected to the back end and working.
Nice.
So yeah, you can write WordPress plugins in Elixir. I don't know if you should.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Bryce. I work in computer security research. And this past year, I've become very familiar with the Jazzer sanitizers in Java. So what are sanitizers? I first started seeing this with C language, like C and C++ compilers, where Clang has a like a memory sanitizer that if you do something bad, it'll kill your program. Like, you know, if you blow past the end of an array. This causes like trillions of dollars of security problems. Sometimes if you have undefined behavior, a different sanitizer called ubisan will catch that. And undefined behavior is like a huge problem in C because compiler developers will use that undefined behavior to break your programs. They're malicious, don't trust them. On the flip mode, there's Jazzer sanitizers for Java. What these do are Jazzer's mostly a fuzzer where it will blast your program with random inputs to try and see if it can trigger a SQL injection, LDAP injection, shell injection. I promise some other problems that aren't injection in a fuzzing context, you know, in the lab or during development. So what I wanted to do was see if I could build these in Erlang or in Elixir. And I started at like 7 a.m. today. So this is the trace module in Erlang. The first thing I'm doing is I'm making a function that's just the tracer, signing it up or creating a trace session, pointing it at this tracer, you know, process, telling it to trace the self process, and then tracing the lists seek/to function in the current process. So whenever I call that, I first get the list back right here, and then I also get this trace message that came from the tracer upstairs. So I'm going to kill that session. And this is our building block. We can run the code of our choice in a separate process from another process whenever it runs that function. So I'm going to connect to a database. I'm going to demonstrate that it works by selecting all the teams from DEF CON CTF a month ago. So what I want to do is I want to actually get this trace whenever we write the SQL query out to the socket that goes to Postgres. I started looking at Postgres. I found the Postgres protocol.ex file, found out it's like super entangled with DB connection, and then I made a mistake in Livebook, and the backtrace said, oh, DB connection prepare execute is where the fault was. So I looked at that. I made this inspector. I instrument the DB connection prepare execute /for method right here. And now when I select splat from teams, I get this nice trace event with, it's a trace. We get the PID that called us. We get that this function did in fact get called. And then we get an array of all the arguments to it. So our connection PID, the query object, which includes our statement, and some empty arrays, and the results. So instead of just inspecting this, I want to sanitize it and actually do something actionable on bad behavior. So again, I'm going to, whenever in my receive loop now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to expect this DB connection prepare execute with this argument array of our connection, a query with a statement, everything else in the query I don't care about, some parameters and opts I also don't care about. Given that, I'm going to maybe alert on this statement. Otherwise, I'm just going to print out that it's something else we got and do nothing. So this maybe alert is where the magic should happen, but I got lazy and just wanted to ship this to gist and a stage. So I'm looking for the string in the query __sanitizer __, because if you're writing that in your SQL query and not like interpolating user data into a place where it won't be SQL injectable, don't do that. It's weird. So if that happens, I'm going to print out a message that it's injectable. I experimented with some different options like killing the caller, killing the database connection, killing the VM. Killing the caller makes Livebook big sad. Killing the Erlang VM makes Livebook bigger sad. But just killing the connection's actually probably the most reasonable choice, because if you're fast about it, like if you didn't stop and run a whole SQL parser to figure out if it's actually being injected, you may actually stop the injection from affecting the database. But at the same time, maybe just run it, on your dev laptop or in CI or something. So I kind of do the same thing. I register our receive loop for the sanitizer as our tracer and tell it to trace the function DB connection prepare execute for any number of arguments in this case. Read the documentation, it's cool. So now I'm going to select splat from posts, and because I'm a bad person, I'm going to try and get the password from the users table, and this outputs the log. Select splat from posts is injectable. The caller is this, the connection is this. We get an error because posts doesn't exist. And now we get a, the process is now unalived. And this should show up on our metrics or our telemetry that this is injectable, this is a bad thing, and actually fix the problem before it causes a availability problem or a confidentiality or integrity problem.
30 seconds remaining.
Sweet. So future work. Is fuzzing in Beam languages useful? Would this be useful in research? Would this be useful in production? Hot dog stand theme for Livebook when? I'm Bryce. You can reach me at some websites. I'm probably going to write a longer post so you don't have to look at this awful GIST URL. They got rid of numbers. Thank you for your time, and enjoy the rest of the talk.
Hello, everybody. I love ElixirConf. Up here, yes. Yep. I love ElixirConf because you guys are all so smart, right? You're smart and you're pretty, and it's just really wonderful being around here. I'm definitely not going to sell you anything now. Ready? And look, I've got a cat. I've got a cat. I'm also a cat dad. Yeah, no, I'm going to bribe you with whatever I got. Okay, data frames are not just for data scientists. Who here uses data frames? Who here knows what a data frame is? Oh, that's good. Okay, I'm still going to explain it. Welcome back to LivebookConf, by the way. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Who here is using Livebook all the time? All right, no, I'm just going to stop. Go, leave. just all of you, just get out. Go get your computers out, install it, go on. No, seriously. We're going to talk about Dataframes. Dataframes are awesome. Dataframes are rectangular data structures. You probably are kind of using them. Like, you know, if you think about you use like a tabular database, something like that, you're basically using a data frame, except data frame's just that in memory, right? If you use Excel, you've used the cursed data frame. And we have better ones. So we're going to have a little look here. We have a library in Elixir called Explorer. And Explorer is kind of my baby. I don't contribute as much anymore, but when the whole NX project came out a few years ago, I was like, we've got to have data frames, because I came from R, and R is all about data frames. It's like the main data structure in R. You know, I'm a data scientist. Okay, yeah, I love data frames. But you are probably not data scientists, because like what, 2 of you raise your hands? And so you can still like data frames because they're awesome. All right, so let's have a look. We've got Explorer. Explorer's got some macros. You've got data frames, and you've got series. Series are the columns, right, in your data frame. Data frame's a two-dimensional data structure. You're going to see what that looks like in a second. We've got some really awesome work that's come along with Explorer, right? So people like Jose and Coco and Phils and Christine and Jonathan have all been working on this awesome stuff to go with it. And so one of the things we get is ADBC, which is the Arrow database connectivity, or Arrow database connections. And so I'm going to connect to a SQLite file, okay? And then I'm going to show you a data frame. Hey, look, it's not just some text. I showed you some text yesterday, but this is our Kino. And you can see the different columns here. You can see the different rows, right? And so right now we're looking at a table of tables. It's the table list in the SQLite file. And I'm going to go ahead and pull one of those, and I'm going to look at it. And you can see what we've got here is we've got like the name of the column all along the top. We've got the number of entries that we have. It's the number of rows. We've got some values. It tells you the unique value, the top value. Oh, Batman, that's exciting. We've got some movies from IMDb, okay? We've also got a smart cell, right? Oh, I just skipped past it. Wait a second. Where did that go? Oh, no, hold on. That's the directors. That's the other data set. Okay, we've also got a smart cell, right? And so we can go and grab those data frames that we've assigned. We can do some work with them. You know, if you've ever used a query builder, that's what this is, and it's a really cool one. So we can do things like, we can add a filter, and we can say that we want to filter by, the director ID or something like that. I'm going to get rid of this one. You can turn them on and off, get rid of it. And we can do cool stuff with data frames. Data frames allow you to basically compose different functions that are very similar to your SQL functions. And we use verbs, right? Like SQL-like verbs. So we've got join, filter. You're familiar with these because you use SQL probably. And we can do cool stuff with it. The thing I want to show you today is how we can visualize some things. So what time is it? Yeah, we're okay. We also have Vega Lite, right? So we have data visualization in Elixir. Vega Lite is a JavaScript library for plotting, right? How much time do I have? 1 minute. Okay, 1 minute. All right. So the thing about Vega Lite, the thing about sending that data across, is that you send all your data up to the front, right? You send all your data in JSON to the client. I'm going to use the second best library in Elixir, which is also by the library of the best, or the author of the best library in Elixir. So the second best library in Elixir is Phoenix Playground, and we're going to have a quick look at what you can do. We've got this. There we go. I've got no time. I've run out of time.
You're fine.
No. We've got a plot here, right? And so what we're going to see is we're going to see interactive plotting. And what we've got going on right now is actually that the data frame that is that we built or had in Livebook is actually being chopped and cut using interactivity with Phoenix Live View, so that you don't actually have to use those client-side tools. You don't have to send all your data up to the front. You can use your interactive tools from Phoenix to chop and change the data that's then being constructed into a spec for Vega Lite, and we're sending that spec, which has much less data, up to the front. Okay, that's it. Go have fun.
Nice.
Hello, everybody. It's no slides. It's just me. So, hello. How you doing? Woo! All right. I'm Wendy Randolph. You may know me from Closure Camp or the Strange Loop Conference. Today, I'd like to share the story of how my Disney playlist saved my tech career. So we got to go back 2.5 years ago. I decided to learn something very new to me: software development. During the early days, I came to find certain things helpful. Remember, learning can be hard. Accepting some discomfort is useful. Experiment with ways to deal with the discomfort, and then repeat. Put another way, when learning something new, find a way to get comfortable with feeling uncomfortable. So let me set the scene for my story for you, going back in time. It's February 2022. I want to change careers from customer service personnel to software developer. I need to accomplish this while working my full-time job. No background in programming. I decided that making a web app would be a good place to start. But in what language? How to go about that? The idea of not even knowing where to begin is my first taste of feeling way over my head. I had already been told regarding this field, the sooner you accept feeling uncomfortable, the better. But this was not real to me yet. So I chose a language. Soon I learned that mental work combined with a sedentary position soon was an awesome way to get fatigued, frustrated, disinterested, and uncomfortable. I thought, this cannot be a conducive environment for problem solving. If this is going to be my life for the foreseeable future, I'm out. So I decided to experiment with more frequent short breaks. I thought, what would be fun? How can I get inspiration with just a short little break up from my computer? So I came to the same conclusion that any sane person would come to. I will dance or sing along with Disney music. Not just any old Disney music. I want inspiration to embrace adventure, motivation to keep going, an outlet for my heart's inner longings. Give me songs that make me feel empowered, capable, and confident. I eventually compiled a pretty compelling playlist entitled Psych Me Up Disney. I'll share it with you later if you'd like. I was inspired through this playlist, to Try Everything, which is a song from Zootopia. Another lyric from that is, even though I could fail, try everything, even though I could fail. One you may be familiar with is Let It Go. Let it go when it comes to my assumptions about learning things, like this is going to be easy. Embracing a whole new world, and then going into the unknown, like accept the fact that I am not an expert here. Dig a little deeper and just keep swimming when everything seems like it sucks and is pointless. And remember that I'm on my way, and if I go the distance, eventually I'll know every mile will be worth my while. And then fast forward to this February this year, after a lot of hard work and a lot of Disney songs later, I solo deployed my web app with Clojure, and I achieved my goal of becoming a software developer, joining a software consultancy called NimbleLogic, where I'm currently building web apps with Clojure and Phoenix. So remember, the next time you need to learn something outside your comfort zone. Learning can be hard. Accepting some discomfort is useful. Experiment with ways to deal with the discomfort, and repeat. Thanks for listening, and come see me after the talk if you have any questions or you want to hear about my playlist. More about me at wendyrandolph.com. Thank you.
Nice.